Well, I guess it's time for all of us to prepare for the worst Thanksgiving dinner ever. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. And you know what? It's almost Thanksgiving. So we're all preparing to see family, or maybe we're not, because, there are all sorts of rules about what we can do, even in our own homes. So what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to entertain myself, and I'm going to watch some movies over the Thanksgiving break. I'm also going to enjoy some turkey, as I'm sure all of you are. And, there are so many great Thanksgiving films out there. And Derelicts is one you may have never heard of, and you may not be prepared for, but it's the perfect one depending on how you feel about your relatives. Let's bring on the director of Derelicts, Brett Glassberg. How you doing? Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast.
Glad to be here.
Brett, first of all, let's talk about your relationship with Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's a good one, but I love horror films that focus on a holiday. So this one, obviously, tell me about your feelings about Thanksgiving these days.
My feelings about Thanksgiving have always been highly positive. For one thing, it comes between two other great holidays. It comes between my favorite Halloween and then my other favorite Christmas and Hanukkah. I'm Jewish, so Hanukkah as well.
Well, this movie is, I love a horror holiday themed movie, and Derelicts really just like, wow. Real simple. It's a family having a Thanksgiving dinner. There's some drama and there's strife between people, and that's to be expected. It's Thanksgiving. And then they arrive, a band of misfits, something like, it really seems inspired by The Hills Have Eyes, which is one of my favorite films. The original Hills Have Eyes with Michael Berryman back in the day. That is such a terrifying film, and I feel that your movie is inspired quite like that. You've got this, family with whatever their problems are, and it's, and suddenly invaded by some horrific murderers that just sort of gain joy in the torture of others. And this all transpires over a Thanksgiving day. Is The Hills Have Eyes an influence? I just sort of felt that as I was watching it.
It's absolutely an influence. It's Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw, a lot of that 70s horror and action movie stuff that I really, really love. Even stuff like Assault on Precinct 13 and things like that as well. Even just the idea of an invading force coming into your life and full upheaval.
And there's quite a bit of gore in this thing. One of the things that I was really struck by was the design of one of the characters. Each character kind of has their own look. There's the girl that has like this horrible wound right in the middle of her forehead that's just there. And then the guy that, I think I've seen it in some of the artwork connected to the film, the guy that has like this stuffed animal that's like on his head. You've got this sort of fanciful, childlike stuffed animal teddy bear, like used as like the sort of face skin in a way on what went into the design of the characters, because they each kind of have their own vibe and look.
It definitely was something that was one of the first things we decided upon after the script. In the script, we don't even mention that mask or anything. It's kept very vague because we wanted to concentrate on that after the fact. And then once we got to sit down about it, I wanted characters with immediately recognizable silhouettes. I know who they are, what they are, as soon as they're coming at me. And that's really what went into the look of everyone. The fact that, and once they get into their other outfits, their dress clothes, I wanted that to be distinct to them. I wanted everyone the wedding dress and the suits that don't quite fit right. I wanted that to be the character. I wanted you to know the character upon seeing them. Like, I know what I'm getting here.
it worked. It really was effective. I mean, there's some, there are some scenes in some dark places, not to ruin anything, but like you just, who just by glancing, like exactly those distinct looks. I think that's important to the design of a horror film. I'm really curious how how people have reacted to this movie. I kind of feel like there's like the horror fans and how they'll react, which I know will be wildly positive, and then people just watching this movie. What I'm saying is, should the family watch this movie at Thanksgiving?
I hope they do. I do. I really do. But my parents have seen it at this point, obviously, and I guess the main takeaway is my mom would like me to make something a little nicer down the road. But I think it's good fun for the whole family. But I'm kind of twisted like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just especially like the I think this is really important with any horror film is creative kills, but I don't want to say kills per se, because creative horrific moments.
Maimings and otherwise.
That's exactly right. So how did some of those come about? And obviously, with a horror film, like those kind of practical effects can be, wrought with issues.
And we did run into issues. We definitely had to shoot around some of those issues on the day, because when you're working on a low budget, like if something's just not going right, you don't necessarily have the time to make it go right. So you got to figure out another way to do it without giving anything away. There's the one particular gory moment in the movie. I'm sure you know what I'm referencing. That was at the script stage when I said I won't do the movie unless we have that, because I've never seen that in a movie.
I think that's a gauge also, like for a horror fan, as you look and you're like, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I mean, a lot of horror films are influenced by other horror films, and we kind of, there's those tropes, but you like when those tropes and those things that, could be cliche are flipped, or it's like, oh, never seen that one. I think that's important for horror, for a good horror film, is like, never seen them do that. Okay, you know what? And for some audiences, they might be like, all right, I'm out. I would love to. I'd love to see, how your mom reacted to some of those things, if she looked away in fear.
You know what? At the end of the day, she found it a lot more artful than she thought it would be.
It is.
We definitely had walkouts at screenings, which I'm okay with. I didn't make the movie for everyone, and that's fine. That doesn't offend me. If anything, it's somewhat complimentary, considering the content. But that was definitely, I remember one time at the premiere when at the Telluride Horror Show, a little girl walked up to the poster and said, "I want to see the movie with the teddy bear man."
Oh
no. And I thought I should really say something, but then the other part of me was like, see, she loved it. she loved the movie.
Oh my God. Yeah, I do think, like, just having seen horror films when I was younger, probably younger than I should have seen them, they made an impression. And I think that people forget that, like, kids like to be scared, right? Like,
they like to be scared in a way that they know is safe. They know that afterwards, okay, I can go back to the real world and everything's fine. And I think everyone needs a little bit of that in their lives, a little bit of creative fright rather than the typical fright of our world. Which
yes, the current world where we're kind of I don't know, where the world is cosplaying as a dystopian future, or maybe we are in a dystopian future. Who knows anymore? But Brett, thank you so much for being on the Film Threat podcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat. Help support the show. It's tools for creators and filmmakers. Storyblocks.com/filmthreat. Brett, how can people see the movie?
Well, starting Friday the 13th, this November. You'll be able to catch it on the Kings of Horror page on YouTube for a 6-week exclusive running all the way until Christmas. And then after that, we'll release out onto other video on demand platforms after that.
Cool. Well, I mean, you're fortunate having made a holiday Thanksgiving horror film. It will always be around the holidays. You re-promote it as like, hey, for Thanksgiving, Derelicts, let's go.
That was an immediate consideration when at the earliest of stages. I'm like, well, they'll have to play it at least once a year.
Brett, thank you for being on the Film Threat Podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much, Chris.